Hey friends, Casper's Kitchen, Brad and Frankie here. We're just going to do part two today of the segment, the 1960s. We started a few weeks ago. We're going to kick off again today with part two of the 60s, talking about guitarists and how guitarist has evolved over the years in playing ability. And we're going to start off the 60s with a well-known person named Jimi Hendrix. Go ahead and kick off, Brad.
Jimi Hendrix, what can you say? He's done about everything that you can do. He changed the way the lead guitar was approached.
Absolutely.
He added a lot of stage presence, playing behind his back with his teeth. I mean, he did a little of everything. He took a Bob Dylan song and made a literally a guitar classic all along the Watchtower.
Right.
I mean, the greatest cover in my mind that's ever been recorded.
Certainly up for an argument there. And he played with Little Richard back in the early days.
Started out, playing with Little Richard, the Isley Brothers.
Right.
He did some time with them.
Opened for the Monkees. Certainly one of the first, what do you call it, showboat guitarists, stageman, throwing that flair. He certainly,
real theatrical.
Yeah, certainly had the flair.
And actually was discovered and managed by the bass player of the Animals.
Chaz Chandler, yes, of course. I had forgot about that. Great point. Definitely Hendrix was an innovator. Cream, tell us.
Oh, man. I mean, Eric Clapton was at his peak.
I agree.
During the Cream years. The phrasing of his guitar leads were songs within themselves. They were just
the band itself was tight. Jack Bruce on bass and Baker, just a super tight band. And I think after Clapton left Cream, he tended to be less hard rock.
Yeah, he went more commercial.
Yeah.
He went for the money.
And made it. That's true.
Another group back in that period, certainly not a hard rock group, but a group called Herman's Hermits.
Oh, yeah.
Who made some great records and took a lot of old songs and made them sound like that they were done by them originally. They did a lot of great stuff.
Kind of Hush.
Kind of Hush, who was originally recorded by Skeeter Davis in the early 60s. And it was actually a country song.
Wow.
But they did a great job of that. They did a lot of other songs that were not theirs originally, but made them sound like they were theirs.
Yeah, I know Peter Noon, he was quite the showman, on the Ed Sullivan and all the shows.
Yeah, he was quite young when they started. So.
And the ladies loved him, blonde hair. And
another group from that period, they only had one hit, but it was a big one. Friday on My Mind.
Easy Beats, yes. Wow. The Easy Beats, they were an Australian band, and a little tidbit on them. There was actually a song done, I guess, in the 80s by Dire Straits, Sultans of Swing, that mentioned, look at Guitar George, he knows all the chords, and Harry doesn't mind, he's got a daytime job, he's doing fine. Well, Harry Zander, is it Zander or
Zanda?
Zanda, and George Young were the two guitar players of that band, and they were phenomenal musicians, and they went on to become famous producers in Australia. George Young happens to be the older brother of Malcolm Young of AC/DC and Angus Young, and he also produces all the AC/DC albums. And Zander and Young own a production company, have TV broadcasting, worked with a lot of different bands. Cheetah one comes to mind, but they certainly got a nod with the Dire Straits song. But it's amazing. The Easy Beats, if you go back and look at that song, that's some fast rhythm guitar playing. It's the guy's just all over the fretboard, and you certainly get a flavor of what Mark Knopfler's talking about. You know, he knows all the chords, but he doesn't play no lead. You know, but that was a great song.
It really was. The guitar for the period were very sophisticated, just really intelligent thinking behind what they created. A great song. Check it out if you're not familiar with it.
And of course, I think we all grew up with the Monkees. I mean, who can forget the TV show? You know, the Monkees.
The Monkees. Oh yeah.
Great songwriting people that were behind the Monkees.
Oh yeah, a lot of great writers.
Carole King wrote a lot of their stuff. Neil Diamond.
Neil Diamond. Yep.
Boyce and Hart.
And although the Monkees weren't great musicians when they started, by the end of their careers, they were all pretty adequate at what they could do. You saw them later and told me
I did.
how great
I actually
was.
I got a chance to see the Monkees in Dallas, Texas. It was after Davy Jones had died. Paul had come. Oh, not Paul. Wow, I'm losing it. Mike had come back with the band, and I wanted to go see him just for the nostalgia. And what fascinated me, Peter Tork, who at the time of the Monkees was one of the least noticeable people in the band, he had become quite the musician. He could play keyboards, lead guitar as good as some of the best. He carried on the whole show, playing numerous instruments, lead guitar throughout. I was totally impressed. I mean, his skill level was up there with really good guitar players.
Well, Peter Tork became really close and great friends with Jimi Hendrix.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure that he learned a lot from him.
Tork was he was noted back in those days for his parties and his gatherings, and he was quite a popular guy. The Doors.
Oh wow!
I mean, wow! What can you say about the Doors?
Robbie Krieger, the first song he ever wrote, "Light My Fire," a rock classic.
Yeah, and they had a radio version and a long version.
Yeah, that was probably the first extended guitar solo I'd ever heard.
Kruger was definitely an underrated guitar player. He played a jazz style, but that's some hard stuff to play.
Yeah, and it actually fit what they were doing. A lot of people don't know it, but Robbie probably wrote most all of their material. Jim Morrison did write some lyrics to some of their songs, but Robbie Krieger was the main writer.
And the keyboard player, Ray Manzarek, played the bass licks with one hand, the keyboard with another. I mean, who does this? Nobody. Nobody.
Well, they had the same bass player on every album, but he would not tour.
Really? I did not know that.
He played on every album,
I actually didn't know that.
Tour.
Wow. Do you know his name?
I'm sorry, I sure don't, but I have read about him several times that he was a studio.
Hey, somebody out there know his name? Hit us up. We'd love to, throw a nod there. A band we both loved, I know, and I think a lot of our style is the San Francisco style, the LA style, but Jefferson Airplane. I mean, what a band.
Yes.
What a band. Grace Slick.
They had an album called The Crown of Creation.
Oh, yeah. I have that.
And I really liked that album, but Grace Slick was the queen of rock at that period. I mean, there weren't many female singers in rock bands.
I heard a story of, I think it was Marty Ball, and he was talking about looking out the window at the garbage, picking up the garbage, and he wrote the song Volunteers. You know, just amazing how people's mind turns, you know. Uh, Take us into Buffalo Springfield.
Buffalo Springfield, I read where Tom Petty said that he saw them in 1967 and it was life changing. I saw that tour, and when I saw Buffalo Springfield, they were the first three guitar band I'd ever seen that I could actually hear what each one of them was doing. They had each guitar player had his own different sound,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't sound cluttered. You could hear what every guitar player was playing.
If I'm not mistaken, they played maybe different guitars. I know Steele's back at that
Yeah,
time
they
might
all
have been
played
playing a Gretsch.
A Gretsch, yeah. They all played different guitars. They all three got different sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Neil Young, Richard Fury, Stephen Stills, they all went on to form other bands and had successful careers.
Yeah. CSN, Poco, of course, Loggins and Messina.
Jim Messina played bass, yes.
Just that Buffalo Springfield. What did they do? 2 albums?
They did three.
Three?
But yeah, they were only together for a couple of years.
Yeah, a short time.
What a great sound they could put out live. Another band that I saw, first band I ever saw, Harvey and the Raiders.
Where the Action Is, TV show.
They had their own TV show. I know that they they had many hits. There's actually a Quentin Tarantino movie out, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where the actress playing Sharon Tate is playing a Paul Revere and the Raiders album.
Wow.
So if you wonder where that music came from, if you see that movie, you'll know.
That's a band that kind of, they had a real big career for quite a while, but when they left the industry, they were quickly forgot about.
They certainly were.
But, you know, back in the day, they were gigantic.
They really were.
They were like the Beatles.
Yeah, they were probably one of the biggest American bands out there. Another group around that same period, the Lovin' Spoonful, who were kind of a folk rock.
Mm-hmm.
That they were a little different, more, I guess, leaning more toward the Byrds type.
Yeah, they, John Sebastian, he hung out with all the folkies on the Greenwich Village scene, if I'm saying that right. He was friends with Mama Cass and you know, all the mamas and the papas and all the folk scenes, Dylan and the people of that time. And they had a lot of huge songs. John Sebastian wrote most of the songs.
Summer in the City was probably their biggest
Mm-hmm.
hit, and that was at the end of their career.
And I know a couple of the musicians were arrested for marijuana, a drug bust, and one of them turned state's evidence and pretty much ended the band, and their fans kind of turned their back on them, and the fans really got pissed off about that, and that guy, you know, went on and kind of disappeared, you know, for the rest of his life, and Sebastian went on, you know, on his own, and that was that. But the band in its heyday were really a different style, a cut above, kind of a breath of fresh air at
Yes.
the time. Um,
Yeah, another group I saw back in that period, a group called Strawberry Alarm Clock,
Incense Peppermints.
Incense and Peppermints, guitarist Ed King, who would later form Leonard Skinner and play the solo on Sweet Home Alabama.
Wow,
It's a great guitar player.
that is interesting.
He only played on the first two Skinner albums.
Mhm.
Then he decided to play Christian rock,
Mm.
and he had a successful career doing that before he actually passed away way too soon.
Uh, Strawberry, not Strawberry Alarm Clock,
The blues.
Blues Magoos, yeah.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
What a great song.
I actually had their first album, which I don't think it sold a great deal at the time, but they did get quite a bit of airplay for the day.
They did. They had probably 3 songs on the radio. I read where Dwayne Allman had auditioned and was going to play for these guys, and a couple weeks before he was to start joining the band, they broke up. So that never happened, and of course, he and his brother formed the Allman Brothers.
That would have definitely been interesting if that had have happened.
There was a group before the Partridge Family came on the air. There was a group called the Casper.
I remember them.
They were supposed to be on that TV show, but producer said, your mother will be played by Shirley Jones. And the rest of the family said, no, if mom's not in it, we're not in it.
Yeah. They had a big hit, Indian Lake. I remember that song.
Indian Lake, the Rain the Park, and other
Yeah.
things, Hair.
Right, I forgot that one.
In a 5-year period, that family made $36 million, and 5 years later, they were broke. Their father ran the show and literally ran them out of money.
Wow.
I saw a documentary where the son talked about his dad did everything to the extravagant. They live in a mansion that they didn't even see all the rooms because it was way too big for what they were doing.
Wow.
And he said that he literally in 5 years spent $36 million.
Wow.
And of course, at the end of the 60s, Iggy Pop and the Stooges, and I have read a lot of rock writers say that was the birth of punk rock.
I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he take a razor blade and cut himself in concerts?
I think he would do crazy things like that. Yes.
I know he was a unique individual, definitely out there, and was one of the innovators of shock rock and the punk rock.
Very good friends with David Bowie, and actually wrote the song China Doll.
I did not know that.
So, yeah.
Wow.
And in that same period, what I call the first heavy metal band, Blue Cheer.
Yeah. They did the Summertime Blues.
Summertime Blues.
Yeah, Summertime Blues version. Wow. The Eddie Cochran put the metal. Woo! That was a good song.
And coming out of the 60s, everybody knows Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin. What can you say? Jimmy Page was, I guess, the first time I heard Jimmy Page, I was listening to nothing but folk music, and when I heard him and I heard that guitar, it was like, what is this guy doing? I was just floored, and even to this day, I'm still impressed with Page's music.
You know, I own a lot of bootleg live tapes, and I've only heard one of Led Zeppelin that sounded like Led Zeppelin. A lot of their live shows sounded nothing like the records.
Yeah.
But this live show that I've heard was 69, very early in their career, I think, when they were trying to prove themselves, and that happens to a lot of bands. When they're trying to prove
They're hungry.
themselves, they're really good, but after they make it, they tend to
Get cumbersome, though,
yes.
or complacent, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Brad, take us into a 60s intro of a popular song, and we don't even have to
Well,
introduce
this
it.
is going out of the 60s into our next segment, which will be
The 70s.
70s. The Guess Who, American Woman.
All right. Listen, as always, thanks for watching our video, and if you like us, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our site, and again, thanks for your time.